You ready to do this, Steve?
I'm always ready to do this. Punch it, Chewie!
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Madura.
Keep your arms and legs inside the car at all times, and don't forget to tip your waitress.
We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 36. We release every Thursday morning on iTunes, Google Music, and Stitcher.
Woo! Four Horsemen ride again.
Steve, how are you, my man?
Dude, I am awesome. I just flew in, and boy, my arm's tired. No, I just flew in from... Betty! I just flew in from... Watch the listen to that last episode, you'll understand. From Pennsylvania. I had some business out there the last day or so with a colleague of mine, so... beautiful country out there, man. Like the Allegheny Mountain Range and I don't know, whatever else it's called. It's very, very...
Are you making up words? I've never heard that word before.
The Scrumdiddlyumptious Mountain Range across the Tootsie Roll Village and the Candy Cane... Yeah.
It's funny that you're talking about like Pennsylvania and like Willy Wonka because Hershey's, candy, It's all kind of like... I don't know. Anyway, every time like I see like Willy Wonka, like the old 1972, I think... I wonder if they were doing this based off of like the Hershey plant.
Well, we were actually right near the Hershey, Pennsylvania, and my colleague has actually taken one of his sons there. And I had read somewhere some time ago that you could actually go and do like a like when you stay on site at one of their properties, you can actually take like a bath in chocolate. It's like some kind of like...
What?
Yeah, it's some kind of like really good for your skin, pores, whatever. I'm like, dude, I would just be drinking the whole thing. I just need a bathtub full of chocolate.
Right.
Get crazy in there.
Like, I promise, officer, I wasn't trying to drown myself.
Right.
I just couldn't consume it fast enough.
Augustus, save some room for later. Yeah, so anyway, so I just got back from that. That was awesome. It's been a busy week, but and then this past weekend we went and took a road trip down to Southern Illinois, and there's a small little town called Nauvoo, which in Hebrew means beautiful city, and it's a little. It was a place that the pioneers settled before they headed out west, and there's a large musical that happens there every summer, and so we took our kids down, and it was just really cool. That got to do a lot of like old pioneer pastime games, and the weather was like 78 and beautiful.
Did you do the stick wrestling?
No. But we got a little Scoville Bakery gingerbread cookie, and my son's got little bricks that you can get down there, and there's like a blacksmith, and you can get little nail rings that they hammer out for you, or little horseshoes and stuff.
I love that like you sugar your kids up, and you're like, here's some nails and some bricks. Go have fun.
Let's get crazy.
Roaming bands of kids with bricks and nails in their hands, roaming the streets crazy like.
And gingerbread cookies. So yeah, it was good. So the week's been good, and actually on the way down, I love whenever I'm on a road trip, I love to have like a book on tape or something to listen to. And my wife, sweetheart that she is, got a book that you may have heard of. It's called The Boys in the Boat.
Nope,
not heard of it. Okay, so it follows the.
Okay, haven't heard of it. Let's move on.
Only a New York Times bestseller, you uncultured slothern. It follows the 1936 U.S. rowing team's kind of trail to Berlin, and it's this team from the University of Washington, and it focuses on this one guy.
Steve, I haven't read this book, but I'm going to correct you already. It's not called rowing; it's called Crew. Just saying. I've seen a movie or two. It's called Crew.
Oh, so you've seen some IMDb movie that has a horrible Rotten Tomato score, and you're suddenly an expert. I got you. Anyway, so it follows this guy's name is Joe Rance, and his horrible life and childhood and how he kind of rose from very, very tough circumstances with his family and everything else, and made something of himself, and went on to Berlin to fight against Hitler's Aryan crew team. So anyway, it's a really, really inspiring story. I'm almost done with it, and I was listening to it again on the plane coming home today, and just a fascinating story. I definitely recommend you take a listen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the name of that again? It was called
The Boys in the Boat.
The Boys in the Boat.
Yeah, it's really good.
I will check it out on Audible this week.
Awesome. How was your week?
My week was okay, but I've got to admit, we've been doing some serious adulting in the Stapleton household lately.
That sounds risque.
Nope, not really. I wish.
What do you mean?
Well, let me tell you, son. Here's a thing or two you may need to learn for later in life. No, we're doing this thing now where we're looking at schools, because Charlie's about a year out from going to kindergarten. And where we live currently, there's an elementary school that's just right up the street, but it's not rated very well. And it's a Title I school, so it gets a lot of money, but it's kind of, what I've heard is it's up and down on the, some teachers good, some teachers not as good.
Yeah.
And so it can be kind of a mixed bag. And so we're looking at charter schools, maybe to get Charlie and then Jackson the year after enrolled in. We're also looking at another elementary school that's just a few blocks away. But in order to go to that school, we would have to move. So we're kind of looking at all these different options for schools, and then maybe a school might require us to move a few blocks over. We actually went and met with a home builder over the weekend and looked at some of these homes just to kind of get an idea.
Wow.
If A, the homes we would be interested in, B, if they would be in our price range, doing some math, and they would be. But I don't know. It's hard to say right now. I'd say we've been looking at our budget. We've been, evaluating schools and reading reviews and talking to parents. And we're just trying to gather as much information as we can, so then we can kind of make a plan, do some praying about it, and see if we can get a feeling, a prompting, if that's the right thing we should continue to approach and continue towards, and then go from there, and then kind of make some other life decisions. So there's some other things down the road that I don't want to get too much into, because it's a little personal, but just, we're just trying to kind of figure out what's the next evolution, the next phase for our family. And the boys are getting ready to go to school, and so it's just kind of a lot of things all kind of hinging on this kind of one decision right now. So
yeah, I know when we lived down in Aurora, it was the same decision we had to come to, which was like we only planned to be in our first house for a little bit, and it got to the point where our older kids started to get into school, and the first few years were fine because it's just preschool and kindergarten and all the rest, but then it started to get into like, no, they're actually going to start learning stuff now, and this is not the best environment for them to be in, and so I mean, I've seen a few movies about real estate. No, I'm just kidding. I happen to have a license. But obviously it goes without saying that the value of a home, whether you're buying or selling, has so much to do with school districts. It's
yep.
And we're we've been blessed to be in a the school district here in Illinois that I think it's probably one of the top public schools. I mean, there's obviously a lot of private schools that kids parents pay college tuitions to have them go to, but in the way of public schools, I think Deerfield's like probably top 5. So that's but we're still contemplating a possible move as well, because it's just a lot of different factors. So good luck on that. Let us know how it continues to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to be making a decision anytime here in the next few days, but I mean we're working things out and kind of letting things sit for a little bit and just kind of casually talking about things together, Brita and I, and just trying to, we had a long discussion over the weekend, and we did a lot of budgeting, and so just some serious adulting, some things you just have to have some hard conversations and look at things and just, really consider what what consequences your decision's going to have, not just now in the immediate future, but down the road in the long run. Absolutely. So we're kind of looking at that. But on some brighter notes, I started something this week. I started collecting the 40th anniversary Star Wars collectible figures we talked about a while ago, the reprints of the original Kenners.
A long time ago.
So I have Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, the Death Storm, or the Death Squad Trooper, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Princess Leia. So I'm almost at half right now.
It's funny because as we were cleaning out our basement, I came across a few old ones that I had that were just sitting like in a pile of something. There's like Luke in the original, white kind of toga, whatever, with his little yellow
from A New Hope.
Yeah, from A New Hope, and then there was an Imperial soldier, and then General, what's his name? Oh, you're so much better at this than I am. The weird-looking guy with the squid eyes.
You mean Admiral Akbar?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
General. He's an admiral. He's part of the Navy. He's not part of the Army. Come on.
My son was like, this guy looks weird. I'm going to throw him away. I'm like, don't you touch him.
It's a trap.
That's a good impression. Much better than your Sean Connery.
Yeah, very much so. So anyway, did that. I went Friday night and helped the Boy Scouts go and get a truck full of wood from some just random stranger that we found in the newspaper that was giving away free wood from, knocking down some trees. So we loaded that thing up and got them all the wood they needed. They're at scout camp this week. And then like a little side thing, like I was playing around Sunday morning before church. I was playing around with the boys and Charlie's like, Daddy, be Hulk Smash. I was like, what? He's like, be Hulk Smash. And I realized he wanted me to be the Incredible Hulk. So I started, acting like the Incredible Hulk and smashing things and, which basically amounted to like me banging my fists against the couch and chasing after him. And Charlie runs over to our shelves and grabs this little wallet that I have. It's made out of kind of like this really like tough reinforced recycled paper that my brother got me, but it's a Superman wallet, and so it's got the big Superman symbol on it, and Charlie just grabs the wallet and holds it right up to his chest and says, I'm Superman, and then he runs at me, and like at the last second, he just like tosses out one fist and gives me the old Superman punch right to the junk.
Ooh.
Right to the junk. And
Hulk Buster!
Yeah, that's exactly, I was like, that's a Hulk nut buster. I'm like, goodness, and I'm on the ground like squealing, and Jackson's jumping on me. He's like, yeah, I'm Spider-Man. I was like, all right, Spider-Man, just get off me. Hulk's hurt. He's now Bruce Banner again. He's Bruce Banner. Leave me alone. But it was just like we had a whole heck of a lot of fun. And then later in the day, maybe like the evening, I got a new video game for the Switch called Splatoon 2. And I didn't really want to get this game. Like it didn't really look fun to me because it's just kind of like a shooter.
It's a painting game, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is kind of what I thought too, and I was like, I don't know, but my wife Brita says, oh, the kids will love it, they'll really like to see you play. Let me tell you, I've never been more wrong about a video game. This thing is so much fun. You're basically like this little kid, but they're all called squid kids, so like they have like little like octopus tentacles for hair or stuff like that. And you have this ability, once there's a bunch of ink and paint on the ground, you can turn into a little squid and kind of like slide through the paint, and that helps refill your ink. But we're playing this game, and there's like a little match called Turf War. And basically the object is to spray as much paint as you can, and which of the two sides has more paint overall on this entire map wins. And of course you can, shoot the other guys with ink and it splats them, and then they have to go back and like restart at their spawn point and come back. And so it gives you a chance to, if you can knock a couple of them out, to really push forward and get more ink all over the place. It is addictively fun. I was super surprised by this. I've probably got a good 10 hours into the game already.
Wow.
And the boys are like, Daddy, play the paint game. They don't even play. Like I give them my old, Wavebird controllers for the GameCube, and they just hold them and just watch me play. And they're like, yeah, Daddy, do it. Oh, you got him. Oh, Daddy, he got you. And, oh, Daddy, look, you're pink this time, or you're green, or you're, yellow, whatever color the ink is our team that time. And anyway, just having a ton of fun with this thing. So if you have a Nintendo Switch out there and you're listening and you're a super friend of the show and you think that Splatoon 2 looks kiddie, I promise you it is a blast. It's way more fun than it looks. So
now,
go out there and get that.
Any worries, any concerns that this is going to prompt some kind of like graffiti tendencies within your kids? Are they going to be like tagging things like the church? And
No,
okay.
I'm not worried about that at all.
For other reasons.
But, if they do, I'll just, give them the old talking to in the back of my hand.
That's right. That's called good parenting. Well, cool. I am glad you had a good week,
exactly.
man. I'm glad you had a good week.
Yeah. We're doing well in the old Stapleton household.
Good. Well, cool. Well, do you want to get right into it? Let's move along.
Do I?
Keep this train going.
Of course I do. Doot, doot. I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, super friends, we are at our favorite time. It is Rebel Intelligence.
Do you want to kick this thing off, Spence?
Steve, I would like it if you would kick it off, my man. How about you take the first one?
I'd love to. So, always a forum for controversial topics. This show does, gets to the hard-hitting facts.
Yes, and, definitely.
Have you heard about the show Confederate that is kind of being produced or has been talked about and slated for a debut on HBO? Have you heard about that, Spence?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think if I recall, Steve, there was I think it's an Amazon show. It was on Amazon Prime called like The Man in the High Castle, which was kind of like what would happen if like Hitler hadn't been overthrown in World War II.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like an alternate history. And
exactly.
I think this is kind of like that same type of premise, right?
Yeah, this is the ill-advised, wildly panned before it is even aired and heavily denounced HBO show, which is from the brainchild of the creators of Game of Thrones. It's an alternate reality where slavery was never outlawed and continues in this modern era. And as you can imagine, it has been the subject of much outcry and controversy, and there's kind of public backlash from both, just the public in general as well as the entertainment, industry and whatnot, and from all of this, even so much as the women the African American women that penned the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite a year ago or so. Even with all of that, HBO is still moving forward with it. And
really?
I just wanted to get your thoughts as to what you think could be the repercussions. Do you think that this could be, revolutionary and visionary, or do you think this is really just a big controversial hot mess that they're trying to leverage their success with Game of Thrones?
Well, I like the idea of alternate histories, like I said, like The Man in the High Castle, which I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot of good things about. Like, I like that alternative history idea. What would have happened if this had changed or been different?
Almost like a Back to the Future Marty McFly thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole type of, what if something in history was different, right? I like that idea. However, like, HBO produces some really good shows. I mean, they make a lot of hits. They do have some misses, but they do make a lot of hits and a lot of like really talked about shows.
Right.
My question on this is like, is this an idea that's like, seems like, hey, we're going to do kind of the alt history route, but let's find something that's going to be controversial, that's going to be talked about just to garner buzz and just to keep, something going, like not necessarily like trying to like, not like I think that HBO like needs the help because I think they're doing fine on their own. But you know what I'm saying? Like just something to kind of like generate a lot of buzz and keep people talking and keep it in their name in social media and whatnot. And I don't know. I mean, that's maybe a little skeptical to think that would be the only reason they would do that. But if they're going forward with it, I mean, what do they know that we don't know, right?
Well, one of the things that that one of these women, was quoted as saying was that, if HBO wanted to do a show about enslavement of black people, there's a show apparently called Underground that exists. It's still kind of looking for a network to run on, and it's helmed by a black woman, which HBO could easily pick up that, and then we would all be in support of that, is what she said. So the question remains is that, and I don't know, again, how different the premises of that show compared to Confederate, but the question is, are they doing this just to create more media buzz? Obviously, they don't really need it. They've done well, with a lot of original hits in years past, but, we'll see. It's interesting, though, that I mean, they're obviously a cable network. They're not public, but that they're still moving forward even with all this kind of backlash.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve, because you brought this up in the article, and I haven't read this article. So,
yeah.
So you said that the person, the woman that's doing like a lot of the social media and like
her name is April Rain. Yeah.
Okay. So you were saying that Miss Rain is saying that, hey, there's this other show that's kind of maybe similar to this that is run by a black person as the showrunner, and that they would totally support that show. So to me, then I guess my question is the backlash that she's putting out, is it not because of the content of what it is, but is it because of who's running the show? Because that's kind of what that quote sounds like to me.
Well, it did say earlier in the article about the fact that, Game of Thrones has like 0 African-American actors or actresses. It says, and she put in her Twitter feed, like, y'all good with dragons, y'all good with magic, but when it comes to black people, no, I don't trust you. And so, so that could potentially be part of it, is just that, maybe the showrunners and the creators and the writers have not previously been, favorably disposed to featuring African-American actors and actresses in their shows. And so, it's kind of maybe a whole kind of modge podge of factors,
various things. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. But it also lends itself to the fact that Netflix has done the show about suicide, and that's created a huge backlash. But of course, they are still running it, even though there's been an uptick in suicide, not suicides, but suicide. Searches on the internet, of course, which is going to happen, but they say it starts the conversation, and that's all about kind of what they wanted to accomplish from the show. So,
I'm really okay with people, in Hollywood and people who want to produce TV shows and movies doing something that gets people talking and getting people to think and doing something that's worthwhile. But sometimes I just think that there's a limit where you go, you know what? Some of the stuff you're doing just to shock people and just to, it's glorifying things that shouldn't be glorified. It's less about like, let's make people aware, but let's push the boundaries as far as we go and try to shock people. And I just know that after a while, like I just get tired of that. It's like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Whereas something like this, though, and we'll move on, but something like Confederate or Man on the High Castle, I think that's really, it's a powerful way to teach someone or to make the point of what if.
Sure.
I mean that's a powerful statement to make sure that something like the Holocaust or slavery doesn't happen again. So.
Right. No, yeah. Like I said, things that make you think like that, things that start a conversation and move a conversation, I think in a positive way are great. But the let's shock people just to be shocking stuff, I'm kind of done with that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But anyway, not in a similar related thing, but kind of, only because we were talking about racism a little bit and slavery, which I don't know how this... Anyway... James McAvoy says that he's sick and tired of looking like a skinhead because he keeps having to shave himself to be Professor X in the X-Men movies, which is really kind of funny because I read this article, because he was complaining about this and he says, "Oh, I'm so sick of doing this, But for the first movie, apparently he shaved his head for X-Men First Class, and he showed up for the part, and the director's like, actually, Professor Xavier's not going to be bald in this movie. That's not going to happen till later on. So like,
really?
He actually had to wear a wig through the entire movie because his hair wasn't the right length, and so he shaved it for the first movie, even though he didn't have to, and he didn't actually become bald technically until like till the end of X-Men Apocalypse. So like basically he's like shaved his head now for like all these movies, and is like he's just like sick and tired of it. And like as a bald man myself, it's like, all right, big whoop. You know, your hair's going to grow back in. You'll be fine. Take it easy, you know, there, princess. You'll do okay. But at the same time, like, I get it, man. I mean, that kind of would suck. But
so as a bald man, and as someone who, give us some lowdown. How often do you have to shave? Is it a pain? I know when you cut yourself, it bleeds like, you know, you have to go to like get a blood transfusion because you like bleed out.
So I started, as you know, but our listeners don't, of course. My hairline started receding when I was like 16. And by the time I was in my early 20s, my hairline was retreating.
Thank you, Gary.
And yeah, thanks, Dad. Appreciate it. By the time, though, I was in my like late 20s, I mean, by the time I was in my mid 20s, I had no illusions that this was going to slow down or stop. So let's just say, like, right down the old top of the noggin, what we call the interstate, the main thoroughfare. Yeah, it's completely devoid of cars, pretty much. There's no one on that road. Everyone's gone to side streets, and they're using side streets to kind of get around. So I've got
back alleys.
Yes, I've got basically the. If I were to let my hair grow out, which I don't because I shave it, but if I were, I would have the Jean-Luc Picard look going on.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Very stately.
Yeah, except I don't look like Patrick Stewart. So.
Like Caesar Augustus?
Yeah, that's more right. Et tu, Brute? So, I shave probably like once a week. And I use a Mach 3 razor if you're interested out there. But I have a double-edged razor that I've used. I also have a straight razor that I can use. And let me tell you, I can shave my face and I can shave the top and sides of my head with the straight razor pretty well because I can see that. But I've gotten so used to shaving the back of my head without looking with like a Mach 3 safety razor that I have to go really slow and like use my fingers to like touch the back of my head to make sure I've got the right angle on the blade and everything.
Yeah.
And the last time I used the straight razor back there, I bounced the blade. That's the kind of the technical term. So instead of like the razor like putting pressure against my skin and slowly scraping off, I bounced it, which means that basically the blade came up off my skin, then came back down onto my skin, up off the skin, down on the skin, up off the skin, down off the skin. And it wasn't very deep, but I put a line about 3 inches long, and I put 3 of them just like one right on top of each other, about 3 inches long. So it's just like pop, pop, pop. And that thing bled like crazy. I mean, I probably stayed in the bathroom for a good 45 minutes trying to staunch the blood flow. I was starting to get a little woozy.
Tattoo. Like, that's like a Klingon like war tattoo, like the back of the head.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Anyway, it was an experience, but I do have a straight razor. I haven't gone to the back of the head with it in a while, just because. But
freaking sling blade over there, my gosh.
So James McAvoy, man the freak up. You'll be fine.
Done and done. So speaking of blades, there is another story.
Are we going to talk about Wesley Snipes and Blade? No? Okay.
Demolition Man. No, I actually, on the crime beat scene, you know, we talked a few podcasts ago about, some heated arguments about Spock and Yoda and how it came to fisticuffs and then there was a strangling and then there was a longsword and we've had some. So this is Fort of Nerd crime beat. So a 31-year-old man has been charged, good golly, with a stabbing. He stabbed another guy, his friend, 7 times after hitting him with a rubber mallet after an argument broke out during a game of Magic: The Freaking Gathering.
Wow.
This happened in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and this guy, Elijah Creech, was a 20-year-old guy, and they were, again, playing a game on a Friday night, came into some heated argument about, some hit points or who knows what, and Creech went crazy. Like, he hit the guy with a rubber mallet, then stabbed him 7 times in the front, side, and back of his neck. And then, as only a friend would do, called 911, worried his friend was going to die. And so they took him to the hospital. Didn't appear to be like life-threatening, I don't think, but he was arrested on first and second-degree assault charges. I'm just thinking, like, what the freak, man? A game, man, and not even like this isn't like high stakes. This is in some dude's basement.
Minnesotans are like almost Canadians. They should be like the calmest, nicest people around.
What is up with this? They're almost like Australians or something. But he did have prior convictions of keeping explosives with the intent to use them and some other things. So this guy's got a bit of a history, as it were.
Yeah. So I have some advice. Let the Wookiee win.
Fezzik, rip his arms off. Oh, you mean this Geeky? So anyway, it just blows my mind. I don't get it, and man, slap some sense into it, man.
No, don't slap sense into that guy. He's gonna stab you in the neck.
Right, exactly.
It's like, officer, he was choking. I was trying to give him a tracheotomy. He just wouldn't stop squirming.
Do you have a license to practice medicine? Yeah, so
I've played a lot of games that have gone poorly for people, myself included a time or two, and usually you just flip the board and scatter the pieces everywhere and cuss a little bit and walk out maybe. Like, that's like the worst it would ever get to.
You throw a controller, whatever.
Yeah, but like, why would you be like, you know what? I'm going to go get up and I'm going to go get a rubber mallet. I'm going to come back into this room with a rubber mallet. I'm going to hit you in the head and then I'm going to stab you.
Because I just happened to have a knife at the ready during this card game.
Right. It's like, I've got this in reserve in case the mallet isn't enough.
Yeah, when you sit down to play a card game, whether it be Pinochle, Solitaire, or Magic: The Gathering, and your other teammates or your others playing it start to lay out weapons like a lead pipe, a noose, a knife, and maybe like a revolver, I might think of, consider other friends or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or stop playing Clue in real life.
Exactly. It was Colonel Mustard. No, dude, it was you, freak. Anyway, let's move on.
If someone puts a knife down on the table next to him when you sit down to play a card game, you have to pull out your broadsword like, that's not a knife, this is a knife. And put a broadsword down.
Playing for keeps, man. Playing for pink slips.
Well, in something completely unrelated to violence, death, well, actually, I don't know, because I've never
racism,
read this book.
Mayhem.
But there's a book out there called The Rook, I believe. Okay. I believe it's a book. Anyway, Stephanie Myers, the author of the Twilight series.
Sure.
She's actually going to be running a show on Starz, and she's going to be like the executive producer of it or something. She didn't actually write The Rook. It's basically this project someone else had written. It's a story about a young woman who wakes up in a London park suffering from amnesia, surrounded by all these dead bodies, and they're all wearing latex gloves. And so she gets pursued by a shadowy paranormal adversaries, and they've got some sort of powers or something, and she's trying to like uncover her past and resume her position at the head of Britain's most secret supernatural service. Before she can figure out the traitors that stole her memory, before they can finish her off. And so, like, that's kind of the idea behind the thing. And Stephanie Myers isn't like the showrunner for this. It's another person named Stephen Garrett, but she's going to be like an executive producer. And so it sounds like she's just kind of like dabbling into television a bit, even though it's like not her stuff or whatever. But her name, though, because obviously the Twilight books were hugely popular and the movies, did like crazy amounts of like, money and whatnot, like her name attached to something is gonna have a little bit of credence and probably draw in more people than it normally would.
Yeah. It's the first premise about the dead bodies all wearing latex gloves sounds a little creepy.
A little bit, yeah.
Creepy, but interesting. We'll have to see how that plays. Are you going to peruse the Rook? Are you going to take a look?
It's on Stars, and we don't have Stars, so it'll probably be something that I just kind of hear from other people.
Don't watch.
Right.
I have to beat around the bush. I didn't write it.
Listen, if I'm not going to pay for CBS All Access to watch Star Trek, and I love Star Trek, I'm probably not going to pay Stars to watch something by the lady who wrote Twilight, and I really can't stand the Twilight stuff. Hey. Sorry out there if you're fans. Just saying, it's not for me.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of other things that you and I are not going to see, the Emoji Movie.
Oh, I've already seen it. I've seen it.
Okay, we're done.
No, I'm just totally teasing.
I was like, stop the tape. We're done. I just flagged our executive producer, said, shut this thing down. No, so yeah, I don't even know why this movie was made. Like, no idea. I mean, obviously, besides just money. But the premise is so stupid. It's set in this, this world of inside this phone called Textopolis, and there are a bunch of different emojis, and this one named Gene, voiced by T.J. Miller, who I think is funny, is a shame because he's supposed to be like the meh, like the meh emoji that does meh, and he's got other emotions. He smiles and he laughs, and so he gets sent out into this the biosphere, the whatever. He's called up and texted out to the main character's girlfriend or whatever, but he has the wrong face, and then she gets mad and of course cause all these problems inside the phone world. And then he has this whole self-discovery thing about maybe I'm not more than just a meh. Maybe I'm somebody else that has and it's just like, what the crap? And there's a lot of fairly, high-end, I mean, talk about, skinheads. Patrick Stewart is in this. Jennifer Coolidge, Anna Faris, James Corden, Maya Rudolph. I mean, so there's some good names in here, but I even struggled to watch the entire 2-minute and 32-second trailer. I was like, this is a waste of my life. So it's I don't know. It's been done horrible on Rotten Tomatoes. It's 6% on the tomato meter.
Wow.
I mean, people are ripping this a new emoji. They're poop emojiing all over this thing.
So thankfully, my boys are young enough that they don't, know about, they don't text and they don't have cell phones. Obviously, they're 3 and 4, so they have no clue what emoji are. So they've seen the trailer a time or two on the television, maybe with some other stuff they were watching, and they're like, "Yeah, Dad, look, it's a hand." I'm like, "Yep, sure is." It's so have you boys seen this new toy I got over here? I'm the Hulk smash, or whatever. Just tried to distract him. I was like, I don't want to go anywhere near this. I don't want them asking or begging to go to the theater because I'm not going to plop down the money for that. No, thank you.
No, I mean, it's just it currently at the box office is the worst rated movie out there. Just so you know.
Wow.
Yeah. So
we evolved past the point of drawing pictures on caves, and we learned to speak and we learned to write. It's just odd that now we've used technology to become back to the caveman era. Instead of typing out words, we type out a few letters and then a bunch of pictures of crap to try to get a message across. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan. There's so many words in the English language that could be used. Tell someone, what you're thinking. Don't put a picture of an eggplant and a peach. I mean, that's just wrong.
Right. Agreed. So, anywho, so that's almost as bad as somebody getting stabbed in the neck from a card game. In fact, I might even attend that card game as opposed to going to the movie. It'd be a better show for sure.
I didn't bring a weapon, so I'm going to take my life in my own hands here. Well, the last thing I've got on the Rebel Intelligence is actually kind of a sad thing. There's a woman named June Foray that passed away this week. She lived a very good long life. You may not know the name June Foray, but you probably know her voice. She was the voice going all the way back into like 1943 of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. It was kind of like this like little pink rabbit and a bunch of these like Easter themed animated shorts. She was the voice of Lucifer, the ill-tempered cat in Cinderella. Most people would recognize. She was also the voice of Witch Hazel in the Bugs Bunny shorts, where there's the plump witch with the green face and the big large nose. She was the voice of Witch Hazel. She also was the voice of Rocky J. Squirrel and Soviet villainess Natasha Fatale, and sometimes Neil Fenwick in the Dudley Do-Right. So she did a whole bunch of the Moose and Squirrel type of voices in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
That's awesome.
She was the voice of Cindy Lou Who in the Dr. Seuss How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh, I love her.
She was the voice of Jokey Smurf, Mother Nature, Gargamel's mother, and a bunch of other various minor Smurf characters. She also played some voices in the Disney's Gummy Bears. Gummy Bears bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Great stuff.
She also was the voice of the villainous, the sorceress Magicia D. Spell in DuckTales. Also Ma Beagle and Mrs. Featherby.
Oh my gosh.
She did the voice of the, you remember the old like Sylvester and Tweety, like they had that old grandma?
The old granny that always, shuffled around.
She did that. She also was the voice of Grandmother Fa from Mulan. And then, of course, she also did some CGI stuff in the 90s. She was like Mrs. Cauldron and a little neighborhood witch in like the Garfield animated TV show. So,
oh my gosh.
June Foray, this is not, like I said, not a name you're probably going to know off the top of your head, but like her voice is like highly recognizable. She did a ton of voiceover work, mostly for, cartoons starting all the way from the 1940s up through like the 1990s. So
I mean, she was like, she was an original gangster of voiceovers,
right?
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, we sadly we lost a really good talent, but at least her work is going to live on for a long, long, long time.
Oh my gosh, that is wow. Very, very cool. Very cool. And I think it's kind of cool, those people like Don Castaneda or these voice actors that you probably wouldn't recognize in real life, but like, Homer Simpson or Cindy Lou Who or whatever, like these iconic characters that they can live among us and you probably wouldn't even recognize them on the street.
The funny thing is Dan Castellaneta, he's from, like, he went to Northern Illinois University, so like I know what he looks like. Yeah, I know what he looks like, and I've seen him a bunch. And I was watching some Parks and Rec last week or 2 weeks ago, and like he occasionally had a recurring role playing kind of like a radio jockey for like an NPR like radio station in Pawnee, Indiana, in the side of the show. And so every time he'd show up, I'm like, it's Homer Simpson. But, obviously he was doing the NPR voice. And today we are going to talk with, that really kind of smooth sound versus, no.
That's so cool.
But
anyway, a good life well lived.
Yeah. That's all I got for Rebel Intelligence. Do you have anything else?
I'm good. I am good.
You are tapped out. Real quick, I told you I finished Parks and Rec, right? For like the fourth or fifth time.
Good golly. Yes.
I love that show. But now I've gone back and I finished off the last couple episodes of Marvel's Jessica Jones on Netflix, and now I'm on to season 2 of Daredevil on Netflix. That's just like what I'm watching kind of personally on my own as I'm walking on the old treadmill. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Listen, guys and girls, guys and gals and guys, super friends. Listen, super friends. Gal
Gadot.
Oh, hey, if Gal Gadot's listening, by the way, call me. So last week we had a great talk. We talked about Comic-Con and what had happened and some of the things that we thought was really interesting. And this week we put out the question to you, except I put it out extremely late. Like I said, we were doing some serious adulting this week, and I got out late. So we only have 2 responses, and so let's jump over to them. The first one is going to be on the old email, and take a guess. It's our main man, Peter Christensen.
Yeah,
he says, Dear nerds, in Goonies, Chunk said bullet holes the size of matzo balls. He does. I did not pick up on this Chunk is Jewish reference until I rewatched it with my own kids.
Oh, that's funny because last week when I was mentioning it, I said I think he said like bullet holes the size of grapefruit. But when I watched it, I actually did hear matzo ball, and I do work with a lot of those of the Jewish faith, and I did hear that. Good call, Peter. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Good call.
He says, Thor Ragnarok was the Comic-Con highlight for me. They had my ticket money last year when I heard the name, and both trailers have been just the best. He says, hopefully you can go to Comic-Con next year so we can see your cosplay dreams come to life. Listen, Peter, if Steve and I can go to Comic-Con, you know what? Not just Peter, Steve, all super friends. But Peter, since you brought this up, if Steve and I can find a way to get to Comic-Con next year in 2018, I promise you we will cosplay as something. Sorry, yes. Steve, I just put you on the hook for that. Right.
Oh.
But I mean, come on. If we're going to go all the way to San Diego, we're going to make it happen in style. Make it happen, Captain.
I'm going to actually get a jetpack of some kind and go as the Rocketeer.
Ooh, very nice.
Mm-hmm. A little throwback.
I think I'm going to go as Jessica Rabbit. But anyway.
Nice.
No. Jumping over on Facebook, the second of the 2 that we had this week, because I was a moron that forgot to put it up. Caleb Albers, he says, you nerds disappoint. I don't think you mentioned at all Avengers Infinity War. That had to be my favorite announcement. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to say, in our defense, because we weren't at Comic-Con, the information from Avengers Infinity War was kind of behind closed doors. They haven't publicly released a trailer yet, so all that has been released is kind of a leaked trailer that some people shot with cell phones while they were there that's gone out there. So I haven't wanted to watch it, to be perfectly honest. As much as I want to see it, like, I'm just going to wait until Marvel releases it and it's in high definition and it looks good and not some person's just junky, crappy cell phone. Because in the past, I've seen a few of those. So, with that being said, I'm not going to read the rest of Caleb's post about what he really liked about that, because it is very, very spoilery of what is in the trailer, and the majority of our super friends probably haven't seen it yet. Caleb, it's not that I don't like you. Buddy, you know that I do. I just don't want to spoil it for other people. So we're going to wait until it drops, and then I promise we will talk about it. That's why we didn't talk about it last week. But I do agree with your sentiment. You did right that you said it's a great time to be a Marvel fan and even a better time to be a nerd. I do agree with that because there's a lot going on and there's a lot coming up, and we're just in a good time as far as this stuff goes. Now, He did say to Peter Christensen, he says, way to blow my mind again. I rewatched Inception from your perception of Cobb never being in reality, and it blew my mind again and made me question my entire life. You owe me a night's sleep. So there you go. That's it. Like I said, I put it out really late, and that's my fault. So that's all we have this week in the old mailbag of questions. But once again, friends, super friends, please continue to respond to us. I promise I will do better. You can always respond to us at Twitter at FortofNerd, Facebook, which is facebook.com/FortofNerd, or through email, fortofnerd@gmail.com. Steve?
Yes?
We're growing the podcast. We're picking up new listeners. We're picking up listeners in like Japan and New Zealand and
I know
Spain and Norway and whatnot.
Every week I'm amazed though, because every week before, just little behind the curtain, Spencer and I kind of talk about kind of what's been happening in the last week and where things are getting picked up and what's hit and what's not. It is amazing to see that this is going worldwide. Like it blows my mind every week. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we're having a lot of fun, but it's always kind of exciting to see where we get some like downloads. Like we had one episode that had like 3 downloads in this like one little village in Spain. It was kind of crazy. But
I love the Spaniards.
We're trying to make sure that the Fortress of Nerditude can get as far and wide as possible. So if you have friends that are interested in this sort of stuff that we talk about, that they can find us and they can, have a chance to join us here. Steve, how can our super friends help? Because we need everyone's help.
Friends, do your part, man. Rate us on iTunes so the Fortress of Nerditude is more likely to get a 5-star rating than it is to get stabbed during a simple game of Old Maid. No, I think we should. I think what we need to do is we need to put a little bit of a carrot out there, Spence. And I'm gonna do a little. I'm gonna push in front of the bus. Somebody, whoever puts out a 5-star rating this week before next podcast drops, Spencer will post a picture of him in some kind of cosplay.
Okay, so the problem with this is that if I don't have a picture of me in some sort of cosplay, I'm going to have to create one?
No, you'll have to get some costume stuff and make it happen, man. We want this isn't Photoshop. You're not putting your head on some Jessica Rabbit. You are going to make this happen.
All right.
So I throw it out there as the challenge.
Okay, so
listeners,
in order to quantify this, how about we do this? If we can get 5 5-star ratings and 5 reviews, I will do that. Because I mean,
let's compromise. We do 2.5.
2.5. How do you? We don't want a half review. How do you do that? All right, we'll go 3. If we can get 3 5-star ratings and 3 reviews, brand new reviews, before the next podcast drops. Yes, I will post a picture of me in some sort of cosplay.
And it will be provocative. Just know that.
Man, what are you trying to do to me?
You're the one that dropped Jessica Rabbit, man. I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay, all then. Right. Well, this is news to me, and this will have some explaining to do, I'm sure, later. honey, I had to take this picture. It was for the podcast.
When you run for president, they're like, wait a minute, look at this.
Yes.
Choose the other guy.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay then. That's what's happening. Let's just move on. Steve, something I thought you might be interested in to hear, and I don't know. I found this interesting. Is that you remember we were talking during our discussion about Inception? We talked about like Christopher Nolan makes a lot of these thrillers. These, kind of like intense movies. And then last week when we were talking about the Comic-Con, we were talking about the Stranger Things trailer, and we were saying how they used the Michael Jackson music and they kind of kept it on a loop and they never really kind of let the song go, and it just kind of felt like it was building tension and building tension and building tension, right?
Yeah.
Well, so something I found out that I came across this week is that there's actually a tone, a series of tones, but it's referred to as something called the Shepard tone, and it's named after a psychologist named Roger Shepard, who was a pioneer in the understanding of humans' understanding of spatial relationship to the effects of sounds, and then infinitely ascending and descending scales, and this effect, called the Shepard tone, or sometimes also called the barber pole of sound, is actually used by Christopher Nolan in pretty much every single one of his movies. That matter of fact, he actually even writes little notes when he's writing out a script that says Shepard tone, and he sends that to whoever's composing the music for him, so they know this is what this is. And let me try to explain to you what a Shepard tone is, or what it sounds like, right?
Some narrative.
So basically, a Shepard tone is like 3 different like audio tracks, okay? You've got like a treble scale, which is going to be the top. You got the mid-range scale, which is kind of the middle, and then you got a bass scale, which is the bottom. And they're all about an octave separated apart from one another. So they're going to have the same sound, just an octave apart. Now, the bass sound starts off like really, really quiet, just, and then as the tone goes up the scale, it gets louder and louder. So, and it gets like this. So it starts quiet and then gets louder. The treble tone, on the other hand, starts off loud, and as the scale goes up, it gets quieter. And then the mid-range stays the same volume all through, so it just kind of goes up the scale, right? But what this creates is this idea where, because you have the treble tone loud and then getting softer as it goes up the scale, and you've got the bass starting small and going louder, they loop that, and it has this continually sounding. It sounds like this thing is just like rolling over again. This kind of, and it kind of gives this effect like you don't know like if it's beginning or or ending, and it just kind of goes on and on and on and on, and it really does build tension and suspension in the audio, which then if you pair that with something that's visually very stunning or very tension filled, it can really like build upon it. And the thing is, like, those tones, because of the way they progress, like, it creates conflict because there's no resolution. Like, how with certain songs, like, like, hey, and we know that it's going to end on this note because this note, is going to, be the perfect, note to, resonate right. That harmony or whatever, right? There's no ending. It just continues to go on, and there's no like resolution. So your mind, you just kind of hear this like droning sound that's going up this scale, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And Christopher Nolan uses it. I mean, he's used it in everything from like, was that movie Interstellar? He's used it in Inception. He's used it in The Prestige. He's used it in his new film Dunkirk, which I still haven't seen, but I've got some family and friends that are going and see it. Actually, I think my mom went and saw it today, which was her birthday. So,
oh, happy birthday, Lisa!
Yeah. So anyway, so something was kind of interesting. You can go out there and you can just do a Google search for the Shepherd tone, and you can actually listen to it. But I will warn you, like, you can find like on YouTube like a Shepherd tone that'll like last for like 10 minutes, and after about like 3 minutes, you're like, my heart rate is racing. I'm feeling, because it just does like build this amazing tension. But Christopher Nolan, like, now like a little peek behind the curtains, because he uses this in like every freaking movie.
It's like subliminal messages. He's just getting us. It's funny though, because
be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
A crummy commercial. But it is interesting. I know we've talked about this before with soundtracks and whatnot, but you take and you put a horror film on mute, and it's
not scary at all.
Yeah, it's not scary at all, right? But it's those dissonant tones that create like the, and it's just drives you crazy.
Or like sound effects too. Like, I'm a big fan of the work of Ben Burt, who is like the main sound effects guy, like the audio engineer from the original Star Wars, because like you hear these sounds of like blasters, and like that's him like taking a wrench and like hitting it against like a guide wire to like a really high powered like power pole, and it's just that guide wire that just holds the wood in place, but it's got that tone, the bing bing, and you just like, he hits like a hammer against it or like a wrench against it, and it makes that real high pitched, and he recorded it. Like, so cool, like how people can use audio to really enhance a movie and like really do a lot for it. And so
reminds me of the old fashioned like like radio shows, or like
they have up the scale
thing, the big old thing of like a metal, and like,
or like the baseball announcers that would like be rebroadcasting a video game. They're like, and he gets up to bat, and they take a little wood mallet and hit against a block, and like, and he cracks it out of the ballpark. Right. It's like, It's like you can barely hear the radio guy. You're not going to hear a perfect, sound of a ball hitting a bat.
Exactly.
It's not live, but yeah. Anyway,
that's too funny. I when I was coming back from Philly today, I got a paper and I was kind of reading through it, and then I went online to get some more info. But my favorite car, my new favorite car,
a Dodge Omni, right? Yes.
Yes.
No. Okay.
No, a Ford Pony.
Escort pony.
Touche. No, the Tesla Model 3 just rolled out late Friday, and Elon Musk basically gave up. I don't know if he gave, but the first kind of production wave came out, and he gave a bunch to his employees. Maybe not a bunch, a dozen or so to his employees to start just getting them on the road and whatnot. He's got kind of a daunting task in front of him. I mean, they've talked about how the GMs of the world and the Fords, whenever they come out with a new model, I mean, it is a slog. There's got to work out the kinks, and the employees have to become more familiar with how the production goes, and it just takes a long time to ramp up. Well, they have thousands of these things back ordered, right? And he's basically saying, well, we're going to get to you as quick as we can. Please be patient. We know you've had them on layaway for like 2 years, going on like 2 years, and it'll be like mid 2018 before they really start coming out. But he needs to do as promised, which is make about 500,000 of them a year to kind of the same standards. But regardless of his kind of backlog and his, like I said, the daunting task that lies before him is just production-wise, he calls it manufacturing hell, is that the reviews have been really good. The first model or version of this is obviously the whole idea is to come up with a cost-effective or a moderately priced or an affordable electric car. That's been his goal from the beginning. And so, people are loving it. The base model goes 220 miles on a battery charge, and then you can upgrade for, I think it's like a $9,000 upgrade to get to the long-range model, which will go, I think, 310 or something like that miles in a single charge. So anyway, it's launched, it's out there, and the reviews have been overwhelmingly positive.
Have I told you that my boss has a Tesla?
Have I told you that my bosses have Teslas?
Oh.
What kind does your boss have?
It's the P90X, or it's like the 90S.
D or
no,
P90X. I think is a workout video.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Tony Horton. It's the Model. It's the Model S or the Model X.
It's the Model X.
It's the sporty. It's the sedan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He has this car, and like it's a lot of fun to ride in. Like we take it to lunch quite a lot, and it's kind of cool. But like one thing he did say to me, and like I was thinking about this as you were talking about the going 200, and I think you said 20 miles on the base model, or 310-ish on like the upgraded model. Like right. I think Tesla though tells you like not to go the full charge, like not to take your battery like completely down to zero, because like it takes so much longer to charge. Whereas if you leave like 10% or 5% in the battery still, so like they say like conservatively go like 200 miles or like 290 or something, and then hit a supercharger and charge back up, in a little while. But here's my thing. Like, I really like the idea of kind of like these Teslas, and I was looking at the Model 3s, and they're nice looking cars. They really are. My only concern is like this, and I've talked about this with my boss, is that he's taken the car to Vegas before. And now if he goes on a car trip, like he has to like look at a map and like plan out like where he's going to stop to recharge. And so like he'll drive for, 200 miles or, 180, 190 miles. And then like have to stop and like maybe charge for like an hour or an hour and 10 minutes and then go again. And so while it is environmentally sound and you are, doing a lot as far as, not driving a gas guzzling machine, we won't get into like the full discussion of, they got to make the electricity somehow, and that causes pollution. But it does increase your car travel. But like if you were just going like back and forth to work, and it's like a 20, 30 minute, car ride and like there's a charger at work, like my boss has, like that's awesome. Like he will never have to put gas in that thing. It's just back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
But long car trips, though, I mean, you
Still
gotta.
not there yet.
Well, you just have to plan on, a normal car trip in a gas, in a combustion engine is going to take you maybe 8 hours. It may take you more like 10, 11 hours because you got to stop and charge along the way a few times. So
right. So I imagine, and I agree, the same thing, the same concerns I would have with buying one is that the charging stations are going to become more prevalent, and the charge times are going to become less.
Right.
Just going to
over time that's going to improve.
Yeah, probably dramatically. One of the other things that I thought was interesting is almost like the old car ads when they're like, $12,000, come in for, you get a brand new whatever, and then they upsell you on if you want leather, if you want a driver's seat and not an overturned milk crate, you got to pay a little extra,
Right.
The old car salesman thing. I kind of wonder if that's what they're doing here. So the base model, the 210 range, the 220 range is $35,000. And that only comes in one color. If you want anything other than black, anything, you have to pay $1,000 extra. So that includes like red. I think they have like metallic silver. They have white. They have red. They have blue. Any other color, $1,000. If you want the upgraded model, $9,000. There were a few other upgrades as well that you could get, and like any car, obviously, there's going to be like a sport model coming out as well, which is going to be another X amount of dollars as well. But really, I mean, if you want anything other than just the base, it's going to be like $44,000 out the door, and that's not including, you got to buy a charging station as well for your house. I don't know how much your boss had to charge to have that installed at his house, but you got to get an electrician out there. I mean, it's heavy power and
it's some work. Yeah. It's a little bit of work.
And the other thing is while the incentives are still out there, federally, I know for Illinois, because we are a crappily run state and one of the worst financially unsophisticated states in the union, the tax incentives statewide are gone. So
right.
So you can't count on that, and I don't know how long the federal are going to be around with our current administration. So
I tell you, I do really like the whole idea of the electric cars. I think they got some work to really get there where there's not going to be a pain between what people are used to and what the new standard is with electric. But it is a kind of a cool concept. I really do like it.
And what they're building, I mean, this isn't like the Chevy Volt or the Nissan Leaf or like these crappy like I don't even like Priuses. But when you see these Teslas, I mean, they are beautiful.
They're sexy looking.
I mean, the acceleration is like, there's no lag. There's no, gasoline lag. Did
I tell you my boss and I tried to race his Tesla against my Harley Davidson?
Oh, you did not.
Yes, we did.
The old American,
little American pig iron. Let me tell you, he blew me off the line.
Really?
Well, because like his 0 to 60 on his car is something like, I want to say like 3.5, 3.6 seconds. And my Harley is like 5.2. So
that's crazy.
Plus the other thing is, and we found this out, is that like if you're on like a motorcycle, if you accelerate really fast, like you have to grip and hold on a lot harder so you don't go whoa off the back end of your bike. Whereas like he's inside his car and it just, pins you into the seat and you still go.
Right.
Plus, since his is an electric engine, it's an immediate, whereas like mine's a combustion, like even though it's really close to, near perfect and near immediate, it still has to cycle that engine and those pistons still have to move. And so, he was already pulling away from me, and I just cranked on the throttle. Cranked it hard, and it still took like a split second to make that jump and start going. So,
did you ever catch up?
Oh yeah, I definitely caught him, but in a quarter mile, it definitely like the 0 to 60, he had me beat hands down.
I love that, like, on the way to lunch, you guys are like,
that's exactly what it was.
Like, drag racing. You're like, some girl comes out like a bikini. She's like, all right, this is a pink. So she drops the flag. We're just going to taco time, man.
That's pretty much what it was, minus the bikini lady, but I like the way you roll, Steve.
Anytime I'm racing, that's always happening.
So something else that I thought I should bring up, because we didn't actually talk about this last week, because there was a lot of stuff we talked about in Comic-Con.
Right.
But the book Ready Player One and the upcoming movie, I just wanted to talk about something here that is kind of a cool little thing that I missed and has been pointed out online, and now that I've seen it, it just makes me happy. So, in the book Ready Player One, it's this story about a video game creator. His name is James Halliday, and he creates this video game system called this company called Gregarious Simulation Systems. And then eventually he creates the Oasis. The Oasis, like I told you, is kind of a virtual reality, right?
Right.
And James Halliday is a huge lover of like the 1980s and the 1980s culture, and he passes away. And when he dies, he leaves his fortune to the person that can solve a number of puzzles and riddles. And it's basically like this massive scavenger hunt. And he said, listen, when Warren Robinett created the game Adventure for the Atari 2600 in 1979, no one was putting like names of like the creators. There was no credits of who created the video game. So Warren Robinett in the Adventure game created this little, what's now called an Easter egg, where if you popped into this little kind of hidden room, you would see the name Warren Robinett written on the wall. And it was just kind of like a little thing. Now, in today's day and age, like we talk about like little Easter eggs in movies all the time. Like, oh, did you see this? This was a little intended wink or a nod towards something, and you may have missed it. Well, in this book, he mentions Warren Robinett, and he talks about the Atari and the Adventure game, and he says, I've created basically an egg hunt, and if you can find if you can find the hidden eggs, it'll give you clues to getting to a key, and if you get the key, then you can unlock the gate, and if you get through 3 keys and 3 gates, you're going to become my sole heir, and you're going to inherit basically like something like $80 billion that this man was worth. It's kind of like if you imagine Steve Jobs as being like really attached to like the 1980s and like, caring about like online culture and like leaving behind his entire fortune for people that could go through a series of like quests inside of a video game system. That's kind of like who this guy is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, in the Ready Player One logo for the movie, it's blue lettering with kind of like a white background. It says Ready Player One, and there's a little egg inside the O in one. Well, upon closer examination, there's a little tiny opening on the left-hand side of the R, and basically you can create a little path like Pac-Man, and you can follow the little dots, and you can follow like this little maze to start at the beginning of the R and go all the way through the words Ready Player One and end up right at the little egg in the middle of the O. And that's
really?
Yeah, that's right on the movie graphic for the movie. Like, go look that up.
I will.
They created this, and like this makes me a little more excited for this movie. Not that I'm not excited for the movie, but like I loved the book, and the book had all these really amazing things. I'm going to get you to read this book, Steve, before the movie comes out, I promise. But this little hidden Easter egg of the idea of a Pac-Man game inside of their own logo, kind of dovetailing in with the whole idea of kind of the book and the story anyway, I just thought was really kind of creative and really kind of cool.
That is really cool. I will definitely check that out.
Yeah, really kind of a
awesome.
neat little thing. So,
well, and you wonder if they've done that, is there anything else? What else might come to light that they've put into something else or dropped in the movie elsewhere, or you play it backwards while you listen to Pink Floyd and something happens.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. It isn't. I don't know. But it makes me excited knowing that if they took this much time to do that hopefully they're going to leave a lot of the little clues and riddles that are actually in the book in the movie, or maybe even change certain things slightly enough that it's different and feels fresh, but that will be interesting and new to the book readers as well as any of the movie goers.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I will. That's on my to-do list.
Cool little tidbit.
So I saw this article as well, just as I was reading the paper, and I thought it was worthy of mention. And while this is a little bit out of maybe nerd culture, it's definitely in pop culture, especially being a Chicago Cubs fan. And you're talking probably at least one of the biggest ones. I'm a far second. But Steve Bartman, what do you immediately think about?
Man, like Steve Bartman is a name that for many years just brought misery and pain to my heart when I would hear his name. And now like I've moved kind of past that mostly because we won the World Series and I was there, and we've kind of erased that mental block now because we've overcome that hurdle. But still there is a bit of pain knowing that potentially we could have done it in 2003.
Right. So for those 3 Spaniards listening in Spain who don't know who Steve Bartman is and why he's important.
Right.
So back in 2003, National League Championship
Game 6
Series,
of the NLCS. Yeah.
That's right. The Cubs lost the game and the series because of not because of, but potentially in part of.
Hold on a second. While you explain this to those 3 Spaniards, I'm going to take this off because I can't hear this right now. Go ahead.
So anyway, so there was a hit by one of the I'm trying to think of who it was. I wish Spencer was on because he'd be able to let me know. It was the Marlins. Was it the Marlins? They were playing the Marlins. Were they playing the Marlins? You're not even listening.
Yes, I'm not listening, but they were playing the Marlins.
There we go. Okay. So so anyway, there was a hit. It could have been out of the field, but Bartman reached over, tried to grab it. It stayed fair. We didn't field it. Long story short is that he was blamed for a number of years. I mean, really from 2003 on. And it got so bad that Bartman's family, I mean, he had to almost go into, not hiding, but his family was, privacies were breached. He was threatened with his life. There were death threats. I mean, all of the social media barrage as well. So this ends really well, though. So obviously, last year, Cubs won the World Series. It was just announced today that they would be giving not only, some past players, every person in the front office staff, they would also be giving a World Championship ring to Steve Bartman. And what's cool about that is that, he basically had to stay out of the public eye for fear of his safety all these years, which is so sad. And so he goes and has this wonderful comment, I guess, this statement that he released today was pitch perfect. And he thanked the Cubs, he thanked the Ricketts family for welcoming back in. He said, I don't really know that if I'm even worthy of such an honor, but he ends by saying something that I kind of want to read. He says, I'm relieved and hopeful that the saga of the 2003 foul ball incident surrounding my family and me is finally over. I'm humbled to receive the ring not only as a symbol of one of the most historic achievements in sports, but as an important reminder for how we should treat each other in today's society. My hope is that we can all learn from my experience to view sports as entertainment and prevent harsh scapegoating, and to challenge the media and opportunistic profiteers to conduct business ethically by respecting personal privacy rights and not exploit any individual to advance their own self-interest or economic gain. Moreover, I'm hopeful this ring will gesture the start of an important healing and reconciliation process for all involved. To that end, I respect the media. Please respect my privacy and the privacy of my family. I will not participate in any interviews or further public statements this time. Words alone cannot express my heartfelt thanks, blah, 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 blah. So it's a bittersweet thing, but obviously, like, you're right, Steve, it is just a game. And from what I've read, he's a really good guy. Like, he coaches Little League and just does all these things kind of in his own personal time to for his love of the game. And so nice that it could all end well.
Do you want my take on this?
If it's going to be cynical and cold-hearted, then no. No, I don't. I want to end as it is.
So, I'm going to give you my take on it then.
Oh, but you're going to give it anyway.
I'm going to give it anyway. Here's the thing. As a Cubs fan, the incident with Steve Bartman that I literally did take my headphones, and you can attribute to this, Steve. I took my headphones off and I did not listen to you retell it in short form because I lived it, and it was heartbreaking. I mean, it was heartbreaking. That incident with Steve Bartman, I understand like that was a really hard thing for a lot of people because of the perceived notion of where the Cubs were and like how close they were and how far ahead they were in that game and all the things and the Ron Santo and the black cat, the ball in the 86 between the legs. Anyway, just like all these things. I'm happy that the Cubs organization and the Ricketts family reached out to Steve Bartman in a way to try to heal that wound. I think that is awesome. Like on a very personal human level, I think that's very, very awesome that they did that. That being said, like it's still, even though I don't blame Steve Bartman because I think he did what a lot of other fans were doing at that moment.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think he should be,
I'd have done it.
I don't think he should solely be to blame. If I never have to hear that name again in my life, I would be okay with that. And it's not because I blame him, but it's the whole game after that moment fell apart. And then they fell apart the next night as well. And it was just a disastrous turn that's going to live in Cubs lore forever. Even though we've won it, and even though we've got that monkey off our back, and I was there, and it was amazing, it was so much fun, I'm just okay to never hear that again. And so, like, when I run into someone who knows I'm a Cubs fan, they're like, so, how about that Steve Bartman in 2003? And, like, they're not a Cubs fan. They're just trying to, like, elicit a reaction from me. Like, right. I have a real hard time with that, because it's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you right now. I don't want to talk about this. I'm like, it's a hard, painful moment for a sports fan like myself. But as a human interest story at this moment, I'm glad that they did the right thing as far as trying to broach an old wound. And I think we should all just move on. And he doesn't want to be in the public, so let's not put him in the public.
He obviously wants to move on as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you'd think for the Ricketts family and for the Cubs organization, to spend, whatever the ring costs, $1,000, $2,000, whatever, to like reinstate this guy's life and let him be able to like go out in public and not for fear of, his safety. I mean, that's, it's worth it. So
yeah, I agree.
Anyway. So
one last thing I wanted to mention, Steve, just real fast. Yesterday, was Harry Potter's birthday. He would turn 37 if he were a real boy and not a fictional character. So, yeah. Can you believe that Harry Potter's nearing the age of 40?
My gosh. How time flies when you're having fun.
And catching snitches and dodging bludgers.
My son, Carter, just finished The Cursed Child. He's like, didn't need to be written.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, aren't you the harsh critic? He's like, if I don't like it, I don't swallow.
Wow. Very, very nice. Well, you know what? That's our show, man. I'm so glad, Steve, to be with you once again. I love doing this every week. I have so much fun, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep it up, and we're going to keep this train a-rolling. So, anyway, always reach out to us. You can always find us on the Twitters, on Facebook, or on the email. Basically, it's Ford of Nerd. And you can read it. You can reach us there. May the Force be with you, always.
Two down. Cubs lead by a run. Tying run at first. Martinez at the plate. Bryant guards the line at third. Here we go. Montgomery's pitch. Curveball strike, 0-1.
Outfielders for the Cubs playing no double zone. Extremely deep in left, Fowler deep in center, Hayward not quite as deep in right.
A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it and throw to Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. The Cubs come pouring out of the dugout, jumping up and down like a bunch of delirious 10-year-olds. The Cubs have done it. The longest drought in the history of American sports is over, and the celebration begins. It's never felt better to fly the W. Congratulations, 2016 World Champions.